Stuart, why are you special?
Why am I special? I've never thought of myself as special per se. I guess I've had a very non-standard probably life and career. I've been incredibly fortunate, and part of it's by design, and part of it is by just sheer luck. And I know you and I talked about that a little bit. It's like you really want this one thing to happen, and it doesn't happen, but it's the best thing that ever happened to you, and you can't, But at the time, you're like, when you're young and you're full of piss and vinegar, like you don't understand why things don't happen or do happen sometimes, and how those end up being beneficial to you down the road, right? For my time in college when I went to study in Ukraine to getting a job and working in Russia to I joined the military late. I didn't enlist young. I enlisted as almost 27 years old when I enlisted in the Army. Already had a 4-year degree. Everybody thought I'd lost my mind. They're like, you must have completely lost. Like, why would you do this to yourself?
Because usually it's people that don't have opportunities, right? Or it's how most people perceive it. It's like, you can't go to college, so you're going to the military.
If you're going later in life, or later in life, something's going
right.
wrong.
Yeah. Or something's like, so to join, they're probably like, what's going on?
Especially after coming off of having your own company, you working on contract for, doing stuff in the space with Russia and all. It was like, but it really what happened. And I think, when I look back on my life and, my dad died when I was on contract down in Texas, still doing the same work after Russia, and my father passed away, and I had to go back up to New York, take care of my family. But I always wanted to be in the military, but my dad was a Vietnam vet. He's like, you can do what you want to do, but he was really against it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to work in special operations. That was always fascinating to me. It was like, unconventional thinking and warfare and, the way you approach problem sets and so forth. And, so after my dad died, we settled the estate and everything. And I'm like, I went down and enlisted. And again, everybody thought you could be an officer. Why would you do that? I'm like, I want to know what it's like to be enlisted. I wanted to be an officer, but I want to know what it's like to be enlisted, and to be at that level before I go and become an O. I don't know, because it just made more sense to me.
I'm Herb Thompson, a Green Beret and resolutionist.
And I'm Corrie Thompson, Herb's less hairy half and branding expert.
Our guests come from various backgrounds, but one thing is true. They are special.
You haven't even covered half of everything, man. You've done so much. It makes me think of Forrest Gump, and not in a bad way, but how Forrest Gump was hitting these different things. Yeah, not in dumb, but just how he's like, wow, he's always at these different places. You lived in Russia and Ukraine, even before coming in the Army. Then in the Army, being a PsyOps officer, which we got some questions on. Surviving cancer twice, and now running a business with your wife, Perimenopause. That's a lot. That's like books.
Wait, do you run a business with your wife, or do you work for your wife?
Both.
That's an important distinction. She'll throw her red shoe straight at you.
She actually, so real quick backstory on that one. In order to run a medical company of that nature, it has to be owned by licensed providers. And I've obviously done a lot, but I haven't done that. I don't have any licensing. So it's a PLLC because it has to be a PLLC. And so Jamie is the sole owner of Perimenopause, the Menopause Center. And so I'm hired on as an employee, and I
get it, girl.
So I just work in the background. I always joke that she's like the director of the movie, and all of her people, they're her actors, and she's the lead actor. And then I'm like the stage crew in the back.
She's like, coffee.
How's the lighting? Yep. Can you give me some coffee, please?
Yeah.
To make you feel better, Forrest Gump was not licensed either, so it's okay.
Yeah, he wasn't.
I'm seeing it. I see it. I think I wasn't even expecting to ask this, but Russia, Ukraine going on, you have spent a lot of time living in both places. You know it. It's a very complex problem, but what are your thoughts on it now in 2026?
That is such a loaded question.
That's what I was thinking.
You're asking me.
Remember how you said you
I guess how does it end?
special
How do you think it ends?
warfare and how they're strategic thinkers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Be careful what you ask for.
Careful what you ask for.
How do you think it ends, maybe? Or how should it end?
If you had all the power in the world, what would Stu do?
I don't think it's going to end well for Ukraine. I mean, I unfortunately I just don't. I think they're, at the end of the day, they're probably going to have to give up some land. It's going to take billions and billions of dollars to rebuild the destruction in that country. There is going to be animosity for generations to come between those two countries. I don't know whether or not, I don't think either side is going to get exactly what they want.
Yeah.
I don't. And even if, like, you think about, like, if Russia won tomorrow, if Russia just straight up won tomorrow, you know, they might be the dog caught the car at that point. Because, okay, yeah, you got the country, but you got this, you just beat this thing with a hammer.
That's a good analogy.
What's left of it?
And the whole eastern side is destroyed. Like, so you just, like, it's like I gave you a car, I beat the crap out of it, you know, and then I'm going to take your car back and, well, we're going to fix it now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to invest in it if you want to drive it, right? Which would be doubly hard, right? Because now you have a bunch of citizens over there that really don't want to support you. And where you get the money from? Who's going to pay for this? Because if Russia, wars are expensive, incredibly expensive, and the blood and treasure that they've invested in this is incredible. So I don't, unfortunately. I mean, we could talk. I know that could be this is a 3-hour podcast with. I mean, and
maybe that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to start a series with you to cover down.
We could. I mean, we really could. We could talk for hours on that one. Unfortunately, I don't. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't sit there and go, this is how it's going to end. I know the problem set. I can honestly say I know the problem set better than most. I spoke on it for years when I was in the military at all levels, including like State Department, the agency, you know, all the special operations groups, the USAID. I mean, all over the place to better educate people on because all these organizations are involved in trying to solve this problem, and they needed. Again, we're back to, you didn't have the depth in the bench of the personnel that actually truly understood it. So you had to give them a crash course on this is what the problem is. And like how we solve it, I don't know. Like I didn't have answers for that. I had general ideas of these are things we have to start thinking about, like to try to sit there and for me to, this is definitely not a, let's knock this out in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, because there's so many facets of why Ukraine's doing what it's doing, why Russia's doing what it's doing. And where that story ends, I'm not really sure.
But I think you hit on something that generations. Well, I think even in Russia too. I'm not an expert, but like,
and not only that, but I think look at how much it's impacted our warfare and the changes in how warfare is being conducted across the world.
Well, don't even get me going on the drone, because the drone thing is another discussion that we could have all day long. That will redefine the battlefield.
I think it already has.
Yeah, it's scary.
Well, I mean, for us, we haven't really gotten involved in a fight yet since, if you think about it. The old joke was, but it wasn't a joke. When we were in Afghanistan, Iraq, we haven't had to look up since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look up now.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's coming at you, because now, I mean, the stuff they are building in garages over in Ukraine is light years beyond the kind of stuff we had even in Iraq and Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Like that pales in comparison to the kind of stuff these guys are putting together in their garages.
And that's scary. Now considered old technology. There's even more that's, different types of warfare through technology that's being created every single day that's beyond what we can think possible.
It is. And when you start pairing things off with it, like quad computing, AI, and you start pairing these things off with, I mean, I think they built a jet. As I remember, there is a jet drone out there they put together. I mean, it's kind of like the old line from George Carlin, if you nail two things together and never been nailed together before, somebody's going to buy it from you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's where we're at, but they're getting paired. You're talking about technologies being paired off that can be devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely devastating. I literally have an entire brief on it. I could do it in a 1-hour block, or I could do it in a 2-hour block, depending on who invited me and what they needed. But I have a whole slideshow on this problem set and what it is and how it started and why it's a problem for us. And I built it during my time at State Department. And then when I wrapped State Department, it turned into just this huge traveling roadshow. I'd get called in to all these different organizations to go give it, because this thing was starting to escalate even more and more and more.
Is there an easy way to say, and I don't know, maybe there's not, why this is important to people here in the U.S.?
I don't know if there's really an easy answer. If Ukraine did fall, you're talking about possibly destabilization of Europe, I think is really where there's a lot of fear, especially on those border states like Poland, even in the Baltics, even though they're NATO partners. Why would you fight this fight if you were Putin? Because I mean, you're gonna spend a lot of blood and treasure on it. Like, although maybe you didn't, maybe you pulled a Hitler on this, right? And said, "Now this will be over by in a few months." Either way, but I think there's a lot of fear in Europe that he would continue, and if he did continue, you're talking about destabilizing Europe. If you destabilize Europe, that will impact. We are a globalized society, a globalized country, a globalized world, and if you start impacting economies of scale at that level, we're going to have some problems over here. We've already seen it. I mean, you shut down the Straits of Hormuz the other day, and fuel spiked, right? That's just one little area of the world, and we don't even get that much fuel from it. We get a very, very small amount of fuel out of that. Most of that fuel goes to Asia.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. Like, it goes to Asia, but all of a sudden it spiked the market because it feeds into the bigger picture of world markets for fuel. So now you're dealing with this impact in the United States on a daily basis. I mean, all you have to do is watch the local news. It's down at the local level. So we are fully globalized. So if you have something come unglued for no other reason, if you have something come unglued in Europe as an American, you ought to be worried about that, because it will or very well could affect your pocketbook.
For those unfamiliar, can you explain what PsyOps is?
Yeah, that's that. I wish I could just come up with a really easy one. The main thing we did was, it's on a tactical battlefield, it's to remove the enemy's will to fight, right? So if Herb and I are on the battlefield and he's my opponent, ideally, if I can remove his will to fight, then that's one less gun I have to contend with on the battlefield, right? It's a lot cheaper to do that than it is to go toe to toe with Herb, because one of us or both of us is just not going to end up well, right? Or end up good for either of us. So ideally, you're removing bad guys at the battlefield. The mission has definitely expanded since the older days, I guess, the good old days of PsyOps.
Was the old days like dropping leaflets?
Well, they still do that, right? Yeah. I mean, there's still a place for that. Even though you have all these technologies, you go to a place like Afghanistan, what, you going to send out text to everybody? I mean, I guess you can. You can send out text certain places. What's a good modern day example of, you had to be careful what you put out there, like in that type of environment.
Or like China, for instance, who, has restricted, limited access to what you can, get through technology. There's certain things that won't exist on their phones is, I think, a good example.
Right. Well, I mean, you target your audience with the media that's going to get to them, right? And then you develop your media in a way that it's going to resonate with them. So, for example, I mean, you look out in Afghanistan, out in the bush a bit, a lot of these people are illiterate. So you don't send out a bunch of writing on a pamphlet that you might have dropped.
That's most.
You need to give them like pictures that are very, hey, turn in your weapons or something like that. And this is how you do it. And these are the pictures, and we'll give you ice cream, And they go, oh, well, I do that. And they look at the cartoons and like, oh, okay, we go do ice cream, There's a tactical aspect of it, which is on the battlefield, but then there's a more strategic component to it. And that's, you'll work in close conjunction with the country team and these embassies on programs that they want to see. So they'll do a lot of training with other forces, things of that nature. But
what are maybe some misconceptions people may have about PsyOps that
well, we are not men at stare at goats.
I was going to ask.
I have not been able to run through a wall yet.
Can you bend a spoon? Let's get a spoon.
Yeah. I haven't done any cloud bursting. I haven't been bending spoons with my mind.
Who's better at PsyOps, you or your wife?
She's getting better. She's getting better. It's getting scary.
I don't care how much you've been trained. We as women may have a leg up on you at all times. Just a little bit.
Yeah. No, I always tell her she would have been really good in intel.
The psychological operations, it's pretty controlled by law and policy and what you could do. You're not just out there.
No, you're not out there willy-nilly.
Yeah.
It's highly regulated. And there's a lot of people that have to sign off in order for you to run a campaign in a country. So it has to be signed off by your MACOM that you're working in. And it has to be signed off by your country team in the country that you're working in. there's a lot of wickets and a lot of people involved in that whole thing. It has to be signed up by a PAO within, the embassy usually.
The government bureaucracy
it is. There's a lot. And to get something launched it's a lot of bureaucracy, and it can be to the point where it can almost be counterproductive sometimes.
Recently, I think we saw a great example when one of the fighter jets was struck down and they were looking for the ejected pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're talking about in Iran.
In Iran, right. And then they mentioned post-operation that part of how that had been successful was through PsyOps tactics.
Mm-hmm. And they were saying they're going find them a different place.
Right. They gave a misinformation campaign to say that they had already found them, to try and spread that rumor so that people stopped looking for the guy. So that's the kind of thing that you would potentially be involved in.
We would be involved. Yeah. Deception. So a deception plan is really what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. That isn't really owned by PsyOps. Okay. PsyOps is a part of a deception plan. So a deception plan is actually run at a commander level.
Gotcha.
Because the PsyOps guys can't just go in and say, we're going to run this little deception. It has to be, in order for it to be believed, you have to have a lot of other people involved in it.
That's one of Herb's favorite sayings is, before you believe anything, think about how many people it would take to tell that story, whether it's a conspiracy theory or not. It's like, how many people would have to not speak up to the truth, or how many people would have to lie?
Right.
And if you start looking at the masses, that'll help you really discern what the truth is or isn't.
Well, I mean, I've joked with my wife about that a lot, about, like, have you ever worked for the government? Like, you know how hard it is to get your own office?
Yeah.
Like, try to get your whole own office on board for a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And see if you can get everybody, like, just your office. Now, you're going to do this across the government. Across countries.
Yeah.
And convince everyone to keep their mouth quiet.
And nobody's going to say anything.
Nobody's going to have a book deal.
Unless there's only one witting guy and everybody else is unwitting and they have no idea. They're just following it. I guess maybe it would work that way. Yeah. But I think, and PsyOps has changed dramatically, like, just like we were talking about earlier, because due to technology. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you're talking about, the restrictions, the rules and things like that. They haven't really kept up. It's hard to change those things,
And as technology evolves, the policies are still back here.
Yeah, technology is moving exponentially right forward, and you still have a bunch of people. The people that have to make decisions to change these rules, they don't move as fast. Let's just put it that way.
And knowing all that did you allow your kids to have social media? Yeah,
we did. We tried to monitor that. It's tough with technologies. I think for any parent these days, your children are better at technologies than you are. So even if you figure certain things out or whatever, they usually find workarounds pretty quickly.
Yeah, they do.
They're on them more than we
know.
are.
Our kids
they have more time to do it.
We're on to you. We know about spoofing IP addresses.
So we did, but there's a lot of, again, another show right there. You have a full show on the finer points of.
Yeah. But hey, hit subscribe right now. See more great guests coming up next week.
Going back to a moment in your health journey, can you tell us about when you were first diagnosed with cancer and kind of what was going through your mind as you received that diagnosis?
I was getting epididymitis. I don't know if you ever had epididymitis, but it's inflammation of your epididymis, which is down in this region. And I got it a couple times, and I got it really bad. I was out PLDC, Primary Leadership Development course.
Of course,
and it's a 30-day school, and I could barely walk. It hurts. I can't even tell you the pain on this. So I went through the day and I just gritted my teeth the whole day and got through it. And then at the end of the day, I went down to, I called up my TAC and I'm like, can you bring me down to hot? I was like, they're going to throw me out of course if I don't get this taken care of. He's like, just take this. You'll be better by tomorrow.
I love military doctors because there's going to be Motrin.
Yeah. Motrin. And it did help. And I got through the course. It kept on recurring. I think it came like a third time. And so I started seeing a doc about it, what's going on with this. I had a date to get a Special Forces selection. And I remember I was down talking with my doc, and he's like, we got to operate. I think we got to look at, because I don't know. We've done all these ultrasounds. I can't find anything. You keep on getting epididymitis. I don't know. Make an agreement with you. We'll let you go. You need to come back and see me immediately afterward. I'm like, all right, fair enough. So I go to the course, get through selection, get picked up for 18 Charlie. I was stoked. I was like, yes. I was on my way, right? And I come back and good to my word, I went in and said, Doc, and Doc's like, all right, you can table. When I woke up, like, cause he's like, he's like, there's no way. He's like, you can be fine. When I woke up, I could just tell this is not good. The surgery took longer. He comes in and he's like, it was cancer. And I'm like, see, you got the wrong guy. There's just no way. Like I just
completed special force selection.
Training. Like, you know what that course is? Like, there's no way. And he's like, no, it's true. So that kind of put me in a tough spot. When you're, 31? I mean, you're still bulletproof at 31, right? You're thinking, I will never have to contend with this discussion or this thought process. I was like, well, what I got to do? What do you got to do? And he's like, well, now we removed it, but you're going to have to you can either get radiotherapy or you can get chemotherapy, but you got to get something because you got to make sure it doesn't run up your lymph nodes. Because if you miss some of it, it will kill you. And so they gave me a choice. So I'm like, radiotherapy, definitely. I don't want to do chemo because chemo sounded terrible. So I went in and did that for, I think, June, recovered from that. And then I spent July training for OCS. And then in August, I went to OCS.
That quick.
Yeah. I mean, I was in good shape.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little beat up coming out of selection, but I was in good shape. So I could recover, not like us old guys now. I recovered quick. I was in good shape. So I got it together. I mean, I remember when I got done with surgery, I was like walking like I was 85 years old. I mean, I was out there in the neighborhood just walking along.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that it's not that you all don't feel the pain or don't have painful things. I'm just convinced that you all have trained your brain to stop firing the signal because you're just going to keep going anyway. And like, that's part of like the willful capabilities that you have to get through those tough conditions is your brain is like not trying to send that signal and you're just going to, it's like, I already know you're just going to keep going.
Well, it's one of the attributes in the special operations world. When you're in assessment and selection, that's one of the things you're selecting for.
Yeah. You
are looking for guys with grit. You're looking for guys that will not quit.
Yeah.
And if a guy's going to quit there, he's going to quit.
Oh yeah, in more important conditions. Yeah.
I did a speech yesterday at Walter Reed to some science types, and I was telling them about the importance of attributes during assessment selection. I was like, we have these certain attributes that we look for. We look for people that have some intelligence. We look for people that have, the grit. We look for this. So there's this laundry list of things that we're looking for, right? I was like, we can't train those. You have to come with those. And we will find out whether or not you have them during selection. That's the whole idea of the process. Mm-hmm. It's like the skills I can train.
Yeah.
If you have the right attributes, I can give you the skills. If you don't have the attributes, I can't give you anything because I can't get you from A to B at that point. And that's why it's so important to assess and select the right people at the time.
That's what I always say. It starts with that. Because if you don't get that right, but truthfully, it's like a lot of companies we've talked in the corporate world, most companies are horrible at attracting talent and interviewing. And like, then you're like, oh, why do we not have what we need? It's because like that assessment selection is the point.
Right. And I mean, even beyond that part, I mean, if you want to go a step before that, even it's also the recruiting. Do your recruiters understand the attributes that they're recruiting for?
Exactly.
Like, because if that's the other problem that we had at Special Warfare Center was your recruiter, the value sets with the recruiting side were not lined up with the value sets of the assessment and selection side. So the guys over at recruiting, they get points for just getting as many people to selection as they can. That does not help. That does, Like the guys at assessment selection, they get points for people that pass assessment and selection. Mm-hmm. And it's not like a course where they train everybody for assessment selection and then, oh, look, I have 100% pass rate. This is like, they can only get people through that they believe are going to get through the training, that are going to be good at what they do. So, but you have to, it all starts really in the recruiting side, making sure you have the right list of recruits that you hand over to the assessment selectors to look at. And then ideally you end up with the right product for the training piece. Your assessors and your selectors are different groups of people.
Yeah.
So the guys that are out assessing, they put together all the materials and they pass it off. The folder goes in front of the selectors, and those guys are the ones that choose who goes forward and who doesn't. And it's kind of it's a check on learning, so to speak, to make sure that there's not a bunch of nepotism or biases that go into who you get selected, because that's where you will start getting a degradation of your product, so to speak.
Take note, corporate America, fix it.
No, not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. I know that, but
no, it's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Right? Comparing the corporate world to the military special operations world. But
I do want to go back though. So did you get the all clear before going to OCS? Like, or you still were uncertain of?
So, no, is the short answer. If you look back in that day and age, this is 01, the systems didn't always align with one another, right? So you got selected for OCS system did not align with medical system. I had already had my medical done. Everything was submitted in my packet. Yeah. So this was new news, so to speak. I think on the reg back then, you had to be cancer free for 3 years, right? Before you could technically go to a school like OCS. So I slipped through the cracks.
Just because the systems.
Because if they had figured, this is another reason why I was like, I might need to get out of the Army. Because this could end me, because this is like going to mess up my whole plan. But no, I just didn't put it on the radar for them. And so with that.
It's not funny, but it is funny. And it might be the most SF story I've ever heard.
Special operations guys are like that.
Yes.
It got worse. So I not only went to CS, but I went to Airborne School, Jump Master School, Pathfinder School, SEER School.
And I'm going to guess you weren't telling your doctor this
OBC.
too. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like a laundry list of schools. Did
your doctor know?
What doctor?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, because you're the Army. You don't have
I didn't go to my primary and go, hey, so here's the deal. Now, I don't know if you can pull it off now, honestly. The way technology is, the way the systems work. They probably shut you down and you'd have to
Back then it still was I remember carrying the folder. It was your medical records and you're like,
well,
okay.
There's another dirty little secret in special operations where we used to have 2 files. You'd have your school file and you'd have your retirement file, for lack of a better term.
I messed up. I didn't keep the good file. I just turned the bird stuff. And then, wait.
And so you pull your school file out when you're going to go to school, and then your retirement file would have all the to make sure that when you left, you could put it in for disability. So that's pretty much what I was doing, and that's how I got through. I mean, because I wouldn't have done most of what I did in the military without kind of working through the system like that. But I mean, there's an old story with McRaven. I think was fascinating. Admiral McRaven. It's kind of a similar thing. Not that I'm putting myself on the same level as McRaven, but do you know him?
We're talking about him yesterday, actually, with our friends.
He got injured badly in a free fall accident, broke his pelvis, and to the point where we're talking med board. I think he was I think he's an 05 at the time, and they were going to send him packing. But at the same time, I mean, this is a guy that had committed to the organization and still had a lot to give to the organization. And if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't even know the name McRaven.
Yeah.
But now he's one of the most known military people in the soft community and even in the world. I mean, people know Admiral McRaven. So I had to go back in. I did have to go back in and get blood draws. So they would blood draw. I think they blood draw you every. It was every few months in the first year, depending on the types of cancer. I'm no clinician, but it will indicate. But when they, you level out like any blood test, they're like, okay, cool, you're good. They did that for about 5 years.
Really?
So before you're in the clear. But they said every day that goes by, your chances go lower and lower. The thing about testicular cancer is that it's one of the most treatable. It's 2 things about it that are interesting. Number one, it happens in younger people. Old men don't get testicular cancer as a rule. And the second thing is it's one of the most treatable if you catch it early. If you catch this one late, mine kind of got caught by accident because I had another issue that was causing me. I don't think that issue in particular was causing that pain. So that saved my life, because if it moves into stage 4, then you're dealing with a Lance Armstrong type situation where that could be a game ender. So that took about 5 years before I got the all clear. I was fine, I was able to train up and go to OCS within a month. And that school is rigorous.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not a school like just go sit in a college class.
No, they run. I mean, a short run at OCS is about 6 miles. I mean, it was a smoker. I mean, even where I lost 15 pounds at that school, in the time I was there. So it was like kind of like a come Jesus moment for me to go, ooh, oh, this will be interesting. But I mean, then you move by it, and I mean, you can't let it own you because you won't live your life.
For sure.
You have to move beyond it and keep on driving forward. But it does give you some pause, and it does give you that come to Jesus moment where you have to go, But you drive on. That's what we do.
We've brought in your professional.
My clinician.
Yeah, your clinician.
And my beautiful wife.
Your beautiful wife.
She saved your life?
She saved my life. Bottom line is I was going in for my annual. Is what first happened.
You actually did that. So that's a win.
Yeah, this is my first thing. After I left the military, it's my first time seeing a doctor, and I was going to establish care with my new primary. And Jamie gave me this list of labs. She goes, go in and just have them run some.
I'm bossy like that.
Have run some of these labs, right? And
did you draw circles on freckles?
No, that's a different doctor. But she handed me like this list of labs, and one of them was a PSA, which I don't know what it stands for.
Prostate surface antigen.
So
not a public
this
service
is
announcement,
a PSA
but
for
this is
PSA.
absolutely.
This is definitely a PSA for the PSA.
Yeah.
So the doctor, he's like, I told him, I was like, I never had one. The military never gave me one. He's like, oh, okay. And they have to justify all of them. And he found his way to justify. Yeah. Anyway, sent it in. It was high. Came back high. And I'm like, ooh. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He goes, it means we need to monitor it. I was like, all right, well, what does it mean if it's high? Like, continues. He's like, then it could be bad. But let's just, monitor, see how it goes. So a couple months later, I had another one run.
What was it that made you think to tell him to have that done? Was it just, it should be done at that time, or?
So cancer screening to me is it's very important as a clinician because we don't know what causes cancer, but we know early detection saves lives. Mm-hmm. And that seems cliche, but that is a fact. And in my mind, I was like, oh, he's had cancer before. I was like, oh, this dude's in his early 50s. Have you had this before? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He wrote him a little list. It was just one of those things, prevention, catching things early. So
maybe I'm just ignorant hillbilly. Why the heck isn't like everyone getting that test?
Insurance,
like there's screening tests like this that
because they have to
shouldn't every guy get it every year?
So there are different organizations, American Urological Association, the USPSTF, which stands for United States Preventive Services Task Force. They all have different guidelines based on data and evidence. And
is that what like women's mammograms are 40 and up? That's the kind of organizations that help monitor that,
absolutely.
Right?
So the 50 and older every 2 years versus the 40 and older every 1 year.
Right.
So when it comes to prostate cancer screening for men, and this is not my specialty area, but it depends upon age and risk factors. So the USPSTF, which is the government, but not really the government, they want to minimize risks. So they recommend starting testing men from 55 to 69. So going further, like American Urological Association, their recommendation is that for average risk men. And what are not average risk men? Not average risk men are African American males or a male who's had a first degree relative who's had prostate cancer. If you are in either of those, 45 and older. No. But if you have two first degree relatives who've had prostate cancer, you want to start at age 40. So we use the word in healthcare a lot, shared decision making. And I don't know why the PSA has kind of gotten pushed to the wayside. Maybe it's because it can affect sexual health, certain interventions if it's not cancer. It really is, risk benefits. And then people are like, what do you mean? There's a risk to a test? The risk to the test would be false positives that would result in interventions that aren't necessary, or false negatives that would be reassurance. But in the bigger picture of things, fun fact I just learned is this is the most common cancer in veterans, 15,000 new patients a year. Okay. The data that I found didn't
for prostate
specify
cancer.
Prostate cancer. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any hunch as to why that is?
The only hunch I could think of is what makes veterans different than civilians is exposures.
Mm-hmm.
various types of exposures.
Yeah.
This, like, to me, shows the importance of testing. Like,
absolutely.
And you didn't even know to ask for it.
Well, that was my concern. Like, and Jamie and I had that discussion. Like, why? And I mean, I was thinking through this in my own mind, trying to figure it out. Like, why wouldn't we? And then I thought about, in the military, for the most part, most of your people are young and healthy, right? Like, you don't. So why would you test a guy in his 38 for this? You wouldn't. There's no reason to. They're, number one, they're not really considered in the risk pool. Number two, they're not considered in the risk pool. They're younger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have like, but what may throw that off is the exposure piece, right? I don't know if anybody's done studies on, well, guys that are exposed to, because she's saying vets, as a rule, right? That's vets. That means you left military service at some point, right? And you're probably a little older.
Yeah.
Does it start to show itself, over 50, or do guys get it early because of the exposure? I mean, I don't know. That's something that would require a study. But the bottom line is your population is younger and they're lower risk because they're in good shape.
So then that begs the question, why is it the most common cancer in veterans?
Right.
Yeah.
And where is the study and funding and things like that? Because
and what policies can influence, like making those like decision changes of when that test do step
It's just a simple conversation initially. Do you have risk factors at age 40? Do 2 of your family members have, first degree or otherwise have prostate cancer? Any family history? If anyone saw the Super Bowl this year, I was freaking stoked because we were dealing with that at that time, and it was Kansas City Chiefs coach, and it was commercial about prostate cancer, and it was about you see the guys all relaxing. It was like, relax your whatever, and it's literally just a blood draw. It's just a blood draw, but an elevated blood draw. The best care for that is, what is that, and then a repeat. So it was it was treated appropriately, but the rise in that warranted a biopsy, and a biopsy is not without risk. It's MRI guided or can be ultrasound guided. I'm not sure, based upon the surgeon or clinician who's doing that. Just the fact that one commercial got out there at that time, I thought that was huge, because we talk about women's health, or that's all I talk about all day, every day. But what men's health, absolutely, like, bring that to the forefront. And it was during the Super Bowl. I haven't seen the commercial since, but I was so stoked about it.
I'm horrible. I am the example of what not to do, because when I got out of the military, I didn't go to a doctor until she made me, and I had uncontrolled diabetes. My body was falling apart.
Wow.
I was about,
and he had every textbook signed to where I'm not a clinician, but I've been around enough people that have diabetes that I knew without a shadow of a doubt.
Something is wrong with you.
Oh, I knew he had type 2 diabetes. I called it. I said, this is what this is, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And then he came back and...
Shout out Doc Klein, my numbers.
He came back
set some
and
records
said,
in the bad way.
It was type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Like,
and then,
not shocked, but thankfully...
But then I started going regularly.
Yes,
but
I was going to say that was the turning
3
point.
years, 3.5 years after retirement, I hadn't been to a doc.
It's
why is that?
fascinating.
I would say, I'm not to turn the tables, but that's so common.
I can't speak for all guys, but like, I'll be honest, I just did my colonoscopy, clean as a whistle, by the way.
Yes.
Pictures are upstairs for anyone who wants to see them. But I was scared. Like, I'm going to lie.
I think it's fear-based.
I was scared of what was, because I was certain they were going to find something.
Yes.
I'm like, all this stuff I've been through, like, they're going to find something. And
he
when
may have said something along those lines when I kept pushing about just certain health things.
It's really fascinating, right? You're talking about guys who've gone into, incoming fire. Yeah. That's okay. I can deal with that one. But then it's like, hey man, you have to get a blood draw for, you're like, and you're like backing away, like,
it might tell me something.
You won't say anybody, say
especially
anybody,
with the
scared,
history,
but you're
with
scared.
the history, which I do understand that history came up, like all of a sudden, 31 years old, it's in his face on top of my father was this age. It was a significant emotional event.
It was scary for me. Just hold on. I did the colonoscopy. I was scared when I woke up, and when the doc walked in, and she was smiling, and I was like, okay, I must be what? And she's like, oh yeah, everything's great, it's fine. And I was like, I was convinced. I'm convinced every time I go to the doc, they're going to tell me you're losing a leg or like something. I don't go to the doc for them to go, you're great. I go there and they're like, hey, you got extra whatever, or this is here. So I'm scared. And I think a lot of guys are that way of like.
I just, before you move on to anything else, want to just talk about like the fact that so many veterans do also have diabetes. We learned as he was going through like his reanalysis for his disability, he was kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. Because they said, do you have any other, medical conditions we should be aware of. He said, type 2 diabetes, that doesn't have anything to do with military. And thankfully that person was like, stop. Yes, it does. Because when you're going extenuated periods without eating, it changes your insulin patterns. And then that can be a long-term impact on your body. So I just wanted to shout that out as PSA for people that may not.
Yeah, I should have had someone tell me to get some blood tests and stuff because I retired and I had to have been diabetic at that time or definitely pre-diabetic, and no one told me.
This is one of the benefits of being married to a nurse practitioner, because but I mean that's a huge benefit. And I mean, what scared me even more about this is our daughter-in-law, her dad, during this time when I'm going through this whole process, he died of colon cancer.
He's 50. He was diagnosed at 47, veteran.
And he's
found at stage 4 by the VA.
And so that was like another come Jesus moment.
Our whole family was in
it. Goes back to the whole thing. When you find it at stage 4,
you're in trouble.
News, yeah.
But then, why didn't he, then it begs the question, why wasn't he getting it before? Was it that he was scared? Didn't want to go in, or was it that he didn't know?
Yeah.
He had the screening, actually, colorectal cancer screening, not to digress, but since we're on the cancer topic, has gone from age 50 to 45 because it's younger and younger and younger. And I think general population is aware of that. He was 2 years late. Again, veteran, exposures, all the things, off of a Cologuard, which is the simple poop in a box. It's not the, and then that's what prompted that. But veteran care during active duty, maybe you should step it up a little notch. Are we just not looking for things because, thank you for your service?
That's what I was going to say. It even sounds like some direct policy action needs to be made to, use these statistics to drive, more.
We could PACT Act all day long, but hello, early detection saves lives. And back to that little cliche.
This is just my opinion. Military medicine is not meant for you to have a great life. I don't mean it negatively, but what's the point of the military? We could say all this nice fluff, but I need to have this person physically fit, ready in uniform for as long as I need them. And then when they're gone, well, who cares? Just at the end of the day,
it becomes another department's problem.
No, there is a very practical aspect of military medicine. It's really what it comes down to, but you're not going to get the soldier if you don't take care of the families. It's just not going to happen. So, but I mean, on related to that, I would say with military medicine, if I walked in and said, "Hey doc, I want a PSA," they would have run it.
You just didn't know to ask.
I didn't know. So a lot of my mind for this is at least raise the awareness. You don't have to have a policy. A policy is probably more trouble than it's worth.
Sure.
But you could have a campaign that just said, "Hey guys, when you get to see about this," because they do it for all sorts of other things in the military.
It's a great point. Yeah.
You got to get your flu shot or whatever.
Or COVID.
And you will get your flu, that type of thing. But for something like this, if you just raise awareness that, hey, guys, you're about the age, just get the thing run. We're just going to draw the thing, Then it would be
So better. Do you think it needs to be more doctoral awareness?
Probably on the clinician side, I would say that would be more of a Jamie question. I think on the soldier side, or the military member side, I'd say they definitely need better awareness. Now, your population of people in that window are not huge,
small,
because a lot of
most are younger.
If a guy came in the Army at 18 and he goes to retirement, he's probably somewhere around 40. So that's kind of that.
Yeah.
Unless you're high risk, you're not even looking at stuff.
But listen, with targeted ads for marketing and all the work that the military is doing through tech innovation.
Hell of that. Just put up a sign on base.
No,
there's enough signs for other stuff. It doesn't even gotta be fancy, babe. Like PX or BX.
But you could literally get right into their phone this minute if I wanted to, just by targeting, these types of individuals.
They put a sign by the gate saying, "Don't do drugs," or all these other stuff. Buy Girl Scout cookies. No, but
okay, there you go.
If you're waiting there to your ID, just say, "Get your test done."
He must have read them because he knows what they are.
Yeah.
So I want to answer that question as a clinician. I think it's our responsibility. I do not expect the public to know what their cancer screening is when, that would be so unacceptable. Well, you didn't ask for a PSA. What the hell is that?
Well, it goes back to I didn't know. She knew.
Yeah.
And she told me to go do it. So if I had known, I would have done it, right? Because what's the big deal? Get it, run another blood test.
So what do you say to those that push back because it's not the age standard? Because speaking from experience, I had to fight for an early mammogram.
It is your right to choose. it is insurance's right to deny. That's fine based upon your policy. But your symptoms, your preference, we should always, and you could cash pay for whatever at any time. But I think it is our responsibility as clinicians to, like when Stu talks about right and left limits, guidelines are just guidelines, just guidelines. You have to have individual nuanced care for every human. And just a simple test, a campaign is great, but like Epic, which is the biggest medical record system, civilian world, I think, unless military has it too. Yeah. In this lower left corner, it says care gaps. Mm-hmm. And the care gaps are designed and put in place based upon your age, your gender, what you're at risk for, when your last PAP was, when this was. Is the PSA on there? I am not sure, because I don't know what the softness around doing PSA testing is now that it's a reality in our life. It's like, why is it? Well, it's discuss with the man, how long does he have to live? It's a slow-growing cancer. If it's a slow-growing cancer, intermediate level, he's had it for years. All that to say, it is 100% the healthcare system's responsibility, but it is the individual clinician as well, because we're the ones. Nobody cares what goes on behind me in a business setting. What I care about, what you care about, is what happens between me and you in that exam room, in our conversation, our relationship, and our level of trust.
Well, that's another reason why I wanted Jamie to be here for this, because number one, she can speak to the clinical side of this way better than obviously I can. And number two, I mean, she's got a wealth of knowledge on other subjects that could be of value on your show.
How are you doing now, though, with it?
I'm good now. I mean, they're going to have to draw my PSA for the next few years. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the other one I had done with the cancer markers. I think he said every 3 months for the first year. It's the same type of thing. The further you get away, the more out of the woods you are. Yeah. But they got to make sure they call it, the house, the horse leaving the barn. If the horse didn't leave the barn, you're good. Which in this case, did it stay localized within the prostate? If it did, you're good. But this is where early detection counts, right? Because if it goes too long, it doesn't stay in a barn anymore. The horse is out meandering around the field now. And that causes problems, because then it starts to spread. So as far as what he told me, he's like, horse didn't get out of the barn, you're good to go. But we're going to test you just to make sure, because if it gets into your lymph nodes, then it starts going other places. And that's where you really start having problems.
There's a little escapee during the surgery.
Yeah.
But they do check your lymph areas to make sure there's nothing else. And if they can find it and pull it, they will. But he said we're good, so I should be good. It's just awesome. There's a level of recovery. I mean, you got to wear like a catheter for 2 weeks. And that's, boy, you want to be humbled in life. Go ahead and do that for a little while. To carry your bag of pee around with you everywhere you go is like,
oh man.
So, and it's uncomfortable as all hell, whether you're a man or a woman. So in this case, it would only be a man, but that's no fun. And so there's a level of recovery after this. You got to learn how to pee again, which is something I never thought I'd have to do.
Right.
Because, once
been doing it for a few years on your own.
Once they remove that, it's kind of game on, so, the bladder gets lazy.
It does get lazy. Yeah.
So you just, it's, like I said, a humbling experience. But again, we're at the point now where like, I'll do what I got to do. I'll get my tests done and they'll pull my PSA. But it's time to drive on and live life, not keep on looking in a rearview mirror going, is this going to catch up with me? I mean,
So knowing that can be so beneficial, because early detection, right? I had a patient ask for Alzheimer's genetic testing, for example, and I'm kind of segueing off of cancer, but I think that's where the risk benefit comes out. If you know. She said, can you do that? I said, it's the ApoE gene, I believe. And can you do that test? And I looked it up because she had no insurance. I found it on a site where you can cash pay. And I said, I can. And it's like $66. I said, but let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. If you are positive, which means you are at a significantly higher risk for Alzheimer's, do you want to know that today? And before the end of our visit, she said, I'm going to wait on that.
Yeah.
But I, again, had to say to her, let's talk risk and benefits of knowing. If she's like, I do want to know because I want to do all the things that are new and cool now, and the GLP-1s, that emerging evidence with that's being studied right now for Alzheimer's. But when it comes to cancer detection, If you have a high risk of pancreatic cancer, imaging, catching, early detection, getting you connected with studies, Duke University or other places that are doing things like that. Breast cancer, how do we reduce that risk? Ovarian cancer, or ovaries removed.
Yeah.
And all day, every day with your estrogen and your progesterone, that's fine. Because you know what? You don't have ovarian cancer if you don't have ovaries. What they do now is remove the fallopian tubes for ovarian cancer risk reduction for all women.
Your business, Perimenopause, can you talk about it?
Yeah, I could talk about it all day long.
That's another show by itself.
It absolutely is.
This is going to spawn about 5 shows. This whole discussion.
To keep it short and sweet on that, my own experience being aware that changes that I was having that impacted my ability to think clearly during the day, sleep well, anxiety's up. He's coming and going, and we're back in America. And I'm like, stress I cannot handle very well, and I don't know why. It's impacting me being back in America, being in my NP role again.
We were in Germany.
We were in Germany. So.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I was like,
I had a 3-year assignment in Germany, and Jamie had been a hired gun working for UNC. And she would come back periodically to keep her license alive, in that world. Well, when we came back from Germany, she got back with UNC and said, "Hey, I'd like to start full-time again with you." And the only job that they had for her at the time was a women's health clinic under UNC. So,
that was interesting. It was primary care still, but it was just women. So that was unique to me. I did a lot of learning there too, because I have done birth to death ever since I became a nurse practitioner. My personal physical changes, things like that. That's what I thought it was. Went to my primary, here's your antidepressant. Went to my GYN, and the words that came out of my mouth, and I appreciate him being so honest. I said, "Do you know anything about hormones?" Literally. And I was like, "God, why did I say it like that?" He goes, "I really don't. I kind of, I birth the babies. I do the procedures." I was like, appreciate that. Then I called a retired women's health nurse practitioner under the back porch. I was like, are there little E's on this? Little E's on your podcast?
No.
I don't want to say bad words.
What are E's?
Say little ears.
Oh, no, you
E's.
cuss. It's fine.
Okay. So I was like, I'm losing my effing mind. I think it's this. This is not working, and I cannot live like this. And she's like, "Oh, you need this, you need that. Just tell your primary." Yeah. So I did, and he's like, because when I walk in there, sometimes he's like, "Well, what do you want?" I'm like,
I've heard in the medical field that you are the scariest person to see. Not you personally.
Well,
but
she might be.
Like other doctors,
nurse practitioners, people in the medical field that have the knowledge. There's actually all kinds of social media funnies out there you can find about it.
We can't see our own health. We cannot see our own health, and we have to understand that.
It's an us and them mentality.
I will look at him and sometimes be like, "Just talk to me. Just let me be the patient," or whatever. It is an interesting dynamic. But so started my own nice generic insurance covered bioidentical hormone. Anxiety got better. Brain fog got better. Still had to understand the physiologic changes. Well, not physiologic. Well, yes, but the physical changes too, body composition changes happen to every single woman. A lot of women, a lot of us grieve the changes in our body physically. And how we thought, if I had a glass of wine, holy Lord, you're going to pay for it the next day. Or why does coffee make me like this now? It's just everything. Everything was not right. But
and what age does perimenopause start? Because this is such a misconception that blew my mind when recently my women's health doctor shared. Go ahead.
So if the average age of menopause is 51, and it is in the United States, that means 50% of women are on either side. So 45 to 55 is considered normal. And when your periods normally stop, it's between 45 and 55. So perimenopause studies show in white American females about 7.2 years prior to the final menstrual cycle. For African American females, 10 years. So if she's going to stop at 45, we're looking at a 35-year-old. So when people say, "When should I be looking?" I'm like, 38. They're like, "What?" I'm like, I'm so serious. Your first symptoms are brain fog, insomnia, and new anxiety. I have stories upon stories. I had a woman last week come in at 49.
Yeah.
She said, "My physician told me I was too young for this." And what I tell women, I'm like, you're healthcare providers, all of us. And we're all on the same team, and we all care for people. And this is always a calling. We tell you what we know.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't sit right with you, it's okay to find someone else. I have women that come They're like, he delivered my 2 children, and I went last year and told him these symptoms, and he just blew me off and patted me on the leg and said, your mother got through it, so did your grandmother, and so will you. Do you want birth control? And she's like, it just crushed me. She goes, I love this man. I don't want to go back to him.
Yeah.
So back to your original question. Late 30s. But these are the typical women that go in and they are given an antidepressant. I was. It didn't work. It didn't work. You know why? Because that wasn't the problem. I don't have a sertraline deficiency. I have estrogen that is high as AMF for one day and in the toilet the next. And the progesterone's going away.
How fun is that?
This is important, guys. If you want to,
this is important. So here's my other show, Herb. Here's my other show. We're gonna start the men's menopause support group.
There you go.
And we need to
at the VFW in Fuquay is going to be the first meeting.
There you go.
We need to start doing interviews online and having discussions about this. And
there you go.
I love when a man comes to visit with his wife.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a man come in, it looked like he just left the gym. He came in, he was like, hey, we were at lunch in the back. My wife sent me over here to pick up some samples. We were like, you're welcome.
This is going to help you as much as it is her.
Exactly.
It's fun. We talk a lot about how, like, when I was younger, that's old people stuff.
Yeah. African-American women that are in this age experiencing this are raising their grandchildren. Because that's a cultural norm, which is this beautiful thing. Generations caring for generations. Now, how do we get this care? Number one, to all providers, and that's going to come over decades. But how do we get interventions now to African-American females to improve their quality and longevity? And it's not just longevity. We use that's a cool word now, longevity, long time. Yeah, my grandmother lived to 94, but she didn't say my name for the last 4 years of her life. What is that?
Yeah.
Like, I want health span, not longevity. And that's a buzzword, a marketing word right now that I have emotions on. So next podcast.
Can you speak to the fact that the FDA black box was recently lifted for hormones? Can you speak what that's all about?
Yes.
She actually got interviewed on that specific item.
Like a couple of days after it.
A couple of days after it happened.
Nice.
They called Jamie. That's interesting.
With the lifting of the black box warning, those of us who've been praying for that for years were so excited about that because it was estrogen, which is one of the most predominant hormones during our fertile years, goes away, becomes chaotic. It affects us and pretty much a ripple effect. That's given. The arm had a type of estrogen and a synthetic type of progestin. So what happened then, of course, all from the goodness, oh my goodness, we may be causing harm with this, let's stop it. But rather than looking further into that, it just hit the media and all hormone therapy is bad. When the reason for the study was they knew hormone therapy wasn't bad. They were trying to study heart risks and improvements because they saw it. You see it anecdotally. Okay, let's put this in numbers. Let's make this evidence-based. So for the last 20 years, hormone therapy has been like fear-based. It's going to harm. And what I say in almost every setting is we've done so much harm in the name of not doing harm by withholding women's hormones that are beneficial based upon that fear. And when it comes to the significance of that study, it specifically says in the study that it was almost statistically significant. So see what we've done to an entire generation based upon that. And I don't think it was bad intention. It just was misinterpreted data that just grew hair and legs and just kind of.
And let me tell you from the conversations that I've now recently had with every woman that has had hormone replacement therapy, they've said the same words. It changed my life.
Absolutely.
Not one of them has said, oh man, this was a bad idea. This wrecked me.
Right.
It changed my life.
The expectation management that I tell my patient, I'm like, if your neighbor said, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. And they come back in their 8-week follow-up with me and they're like, I feel a little better. I'm still not. I'm like, sis, it's a moving target. We're going to get it right. Don't give up on this. Like we're with you every step of the way because it is very nuanced, especially in the peri stages after the fact. Your hormones are bottom. And we can make them where we want them, where evidence is going to show that it's a benefit at a certain level. What are we testing? So you will get a typical blood count. It's called a CBC, a metabolic panel, which is blood sugar, liver function, kidneys, some electrolytes, maybe your proteins, and your cholesterol level. But if you're feeling bad, you're having central weight gain, your hair's falling out, breaking, whatever, then here's your TSH only, thyroid stimulating hormone. That's normal as well. Are you tired? Maybe your vitamin D is, I don't know, 30. Maybe you could use a little more, but that's normal. You go further and you look in the perimenopausal woman of the actual hormones. So what your labs tell you on that day is at that moment. I had mine tested recently. I had a 367, and 2 weeks later, I had a 60, and this is just of my estrogen. So super interesting to me. And could I feel that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So peri is still peri. And it is difficult because you're not going to get a snapshot at this point during those 7, 10, 4 years before your final menstrual period that there is no lab value that goes perimenopause. Yeah. It is your constellation of symptoms and a clinician that understands pattern recognition and connecting the dots.
Girl, say that again.
Pattern recognition, connecting the dots with a clinician who understands that.
I just had to throw that out there.
And I love data, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like you have to know what you're looking at. You have to, and that what midlife women's care is right now is the pattern recognition. Now, just because I have a menopause hammer doesn't mean everything's menopause. Your thyroid, all the way down to thyroid antibodies, I find commonly women have thyroid antibodies, and the thyroid has yet to go. It's fighting a good fight. It has yet to fail, I guess. But other things like insulin, normal A1C. Normal fasting glucose, I check her insulin, it's 19. It's in the green zone. Oh, she's already developing insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Let's intervene right here at 45 years old. And it is completely wrong to think a woman cannot use hormone replacement therapy or hormone therapy or menopausal hormone therapy. We fight in big circles about what the acronym should be. When you're still menstruating, you absolutely can support a woman's hormones. And then you also need to teach a woman, this is an entirely new body. Everything that has told your body what to do and be is vastly different forever and ever. Amen.
I got questions on how you guys work together, but what's it like for you to see, this is y'all's business, right?
Yeah.
Like you
what's it
see
like
this
when the
every
women
day.
come in? Are you working at the front? Do they see you right away?
Like I joked about earlier, like I always joke that like Jamie's like the director and a lead actor in the film, and she's got all of her actors up there with her, and she's leading all that. And
we're not acting, by the way.
But they're not acting. And I'm basically the guy that runs the stage crew. I make sure the lighting's right. We got the sound up. We got the. Yeah. Do we have all the props in the right
You're the
place?
Charlie.
He is the brains behind this. Like I am the clinician.
Yeah.
And he has taught me so much. I'm like, dude, I'm a freaking business owner. How in the hell did that happen? This guy, because he, here's your coffee, pat me on the head, do good things today. Yes, sir. I come back with like, this is a problem and this is a problem. And what about this? And how do we grow? And, I'm outgrowing the space already. We just opened it that way. And he's like, okay, babe. And we talk about this, and he is
a strategic thinker.
Absolutely.
What's that like to work together? Because we obviously, we work together.
Describing our dynamic.
Yeah.
We are so different, but so many people have said we are just this puzzle piece that is just.
Yeah, you have your ups and downs. You guys know that.
Wait, you guys fight?
You do the same thing.
99% amazing, 1%. Oh my God, I got more gray hair.
Never. There's never a disagreement. No, we have different ways of approaching certain things. That doesn't mean there's a more right way or a wrong way to do it. Sometimes you get there, it's the right way, the wrong way, and Jamie's way. We do have those discussions every now and then. You have to have both in order to make it work. Like if you did everything the way Jamie wanted to do it, it probably wouldn't work. If you did everything the way I wanted to do it, it definitely wouldn't work. Where do you go? Like we were talking about earlier, like who do I got to talk to do this? Like you said, you mentioned that you have a guy now that does all the editing, because that was just something you guys I can't do that one. Like we're going to kill each other.
Well, as you know, as you're doing your growth and your scaling, you've only got so many hours in the day, and there's so many tasks in a small business that fall on.
And for us, it's usually when it's like, there's not a differentiation of skills. Like, oh, we both can do this.
Then
that's where we have Rob. But
that's really,
I always joke and tell people, like, it becomes whole different when you have a fight with their coworker and then you go to bed with them. Like, you better figure life out.
That's true. You're going to be on the couch for God knows how long. Like the kind of one of the upsides is we do have very different roles. Like as much as I would want maybe to do what she does, there's no way I ever can do what she does. I'm not a licensed clinician. I'm not female. I don't have there's no way I could do any of what she
You're
does.
an incredibly nice guy, but you would not be the one that I would go to for hormone
and I wouldn't expect
discussions.
that you would. I mean, we're not like
He
we've
knows
actually,
more than any other guy I know.
Right.
I am the only male in the company.
Yeah.
It will probably be that way for a long time.
But I think there's some power to that. As you mentioned, like there's so many men that want support. I have a loving, wonderful, supportive husband. So many men
It's called survival.
Yes.
Support, survival.
So many men want additional survival tactics in their tool belt. So do you all have some kind of like programmatic built in, or are you guys looking to expand that?
We do not. I have joked about it a lot. I do not really have a game plan on what that looks like right now. I think right now, I think the only thing we really got going on right now is kind of an awareness campaign. Like, it's okay to be concerned about your wife. It's okay to be supportive. It's okay to learn more about this. She's going through a really difficult time, and it's not you.
Can we talk about what's not okay for a minute?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Of course you can.
You know what I'm going to say?
No.
Is this your time of the month, or is something happening with you? Are you going through that thing?
Yes,
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Yes. When that is the only reason we're pissed off. Oh, I know why you're pissed off. You must be getting ready to start.
No, but like, I mean,
those are fighting.
Are your hormones okay?
No.
Well, see, on that would be a fair question. Like you walk in, your wife's throwing pots and pans at you, and you.
I mean, that's an obvious. The hormones.
You didn't put you didn't put your glass away. This might be.
See,
there might be something off.
Sure.
I'm smart enough to not go, oh, is it that time of the month?
No,
but
you don't.
We'll have an argument, and then she'll be that time of the month. And be like, now it makes sense.
You've
not
never been
keep that
stupid
to
enough
yourself.
to say that, or else you would
Well, I
not be
did
sitting
once.
here.
We had a disagreement over it.
Oh, I
No,
don't
but
remember.
that's a very one-dimensional look at, and a very probably a misogynist way of looking at the problem set, right? And being somebody trained in strategic thinking and understanding communications and how they work, you probably want to be a little bit more diplomatic in how you approach this. I think a lot of it too, again, going back to it's lack of knowledge. I mean, you have women that don't understand what's going on. Right. You have clinicians that don't understand what's going on. How in God's name are you going to expect men to truly understand what's going on? Like, it's almost not even fair. Right?
Yeah, I thought that menopause was hot flashes and your period stops. The end. That's all I thought it was.
If it was only that,
right? I had no idea.
It is.
It's a fundamental shift and a neuroendocrine shift that is one direction only.
We have had women come into the clinic after seeing Jamie, and they're like, "You have saved my job. You have saved my relationship. In some cases, they've said you saved my life."
Yeah,
like it is that dramatic.
It's so serious.
I think when the men get involved and truly understand what's going on, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize."
Did I not say? I felt like I was getting Alzheimer's. I was losing words.
I felt like you were.
And then, but also like having full workups. Yeah. So full workups for multiple sclerosis because of these random sensations.
Yeah.
I'm having tingling. I feel like there's little drops of water every now and then that come on my legs. When we're like, was that it?
Itching, the itching in the lower abdomen.
The itching in the ear.
The itching in the ear.
Just the itching.
The itching. All the itching. Everything.
Estrogen, hot, dry, and itchy.
Yeah.
Estrogen's going, hey, lady.
Maybe this happens so that the kids want to leave home. I don't know.
Peace out, mama. I agree. We are at the top of our game professionally. We have raised kids, or we have women who will have late in life children, and those children are now starting their periods. And he's, wanting to. The husband's like, Jesus, I know what is happening. But not just that. It's late in life pregnancies in their early 40s, and women come. They're like, my child is 4 years old. I have never felt like myself. I have been exhausted. That is real. If you're having a late in life child and do you flip from postpartum to perimenopause? Absolutely. Don't anyone let them tell you, or whatever I'm trying to say, that does not exist, because it absolutely does. But yeah, you're right. It's this intersecting point where I find a lot of clarity. I don't have this desire to hold an infant. Like, it just kind of, it shifts. And we've done for others so much that at this time we find ourselves going, I need to do for me. And in the right and or wrong relationships, that's seen as selfish, as why aren't you doing this for me? You don't love me. Kids, the same thing. But you're like, but I want to do all the things because that was my identity and that made me feel good, but I can't because I can't get out of bed this morning. Or I'm so irritable that this one thing just sends you off the deep end. It's okay.
on the opposite of that, it can depress you off the deep end. Where
depression is so common.
Things that just, in hindsight, really weren't that traumatic in the moment. They seemed very traumatic.
Yeah, and then you feel guilty about it. Then you're in this spiral, and then I'm a bad mom, I'm a bad wife, I'm a bad whatever, I'm a bad this. But if you fully understand that it is a chemical change in you, does it make it easier? Not necessarily.
And this isn't like, hey, this might happen. It's
gonna happen.
If you're a woman,
yeah.
Well, if you live,
happen.
And that's another interesting part. I think, like her and I have talked about this a lot. Like, people go, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this becoming more prominent?
Yeah.
Really, it's kind of a medical technology discussion, right? We live longer now.
Yeah.
And like, if you think about it a lot, like, if you go back 300, 400 years, right? People did not live as long and live that long. So now you have people living a lot longer, and you have women in the workplace that have become very successful and prominent. So this is legitimately an issue now.
Mm-hmm.
It's 51% of your population plus, right?
And several times in this conversation, you all have said the words, this is now happening earlier than what has been studied in the past. And I think that we may be seeing some of that as well, because it feels like more and more people are having these conversations of these symptoms much earlier than ever before.
Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of shifts.
As we wrap it up, though, Stuart, deep question for you.
Deep question.
Given all you've been through, what do you value most in life?
You start to really understand how important your time is, and how much. I don't know if you ever heard the term of quality days remaining, but they use that one a lot. You start really thinking about how many quality days remaining do I have when you start kind of seeing or being threatened with your own mortality. I mean, when we spent time in combat zones, it's a survival mechanism that you have is like any day can be my day. You don't sit there and dwell on it anymore. Like, a mortar lands about 50 feet from you, you keep on moving forward. And then you get by all that stuff, and then you get back and like you get threatened with things like this, and you start having mortality thoughts again, and then you start thinking, well, how much time do I have, and what do I want to get done between now and the time I get my ticket punched? Time is probably one of the most important things to me. Time I spend with my family, time we get to go and meet with folks like you. You only have, like, I think Jamie mentioned it earlier, that how much health you have. My dad used to tell me when I was a kid, and I never really gave this much thought until I got older. He's like, in order to do what you want to do in life, you have to have the time, the money, and the health. He's like, unfortunately, you're usually missing one of the three. And when I was younger, I didn't think much about it, but when as I got older, I started seeing it. Like, when you're young, your time is cheap and your health is there, but you have no money.
Yeah.
And then you get older and you start making some money, but you have no time anymore because you're too busy doing all these things, right? And then when you finally have the time, you finally have the money, now you don't have the health anymore. So you can't go out and do all these things that you want to do. So those conversations with my father come back a lot as I get older on the time, the money, and the health. And they're all three are really important, but they're also mainly health and time. They're interrelated. They become more interrelated as you get older. And I definitely value my time more than anything else.
So I appreciate it.
I'd love to ask the same question of you, Jamie. What do you value most?
Definitely time and relationships, and the ability to share what I have learned as a midlife woman with other midlife women.
Love that. Thank you both for being
willing
to.
Thanks for having us.
Subscribe, like, and comment, and don't forget to set those notifications. We'll see you next week with another special guest.
Until then, own your journey.